Welcome to the Rising for Women podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Merlo-Booth, and I believe the world will be changed for women when we change how we walk in it. So each week, we're going to have hard conversations. We're going to explore new options. Some of them are going to be hard options, and we're going to have some real straight talk. We're going to do that because I have faith that women can handle it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Rising Podcast for Women with your hosts, Lisa Merlo-Booth and Arlene Neuman. Dee Marcotte can't be here with us today, but she's with us in spirit. And so Arlene and I are going to do something a little bit different today. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of do a little bit of an interview type of thing, with Arlene interviewing me on kind of a new relationship model that I've been working on. So let's see how it goes.
Good. Well, perfect. Why don't you say what that new model is? Because I'm very excited about it.
So it's what I'm calling radically new relationships. So that's what I'm talking about with couples, but I also talk about radically new cultures in businesses, on teams, in groups. But yeah, radically new relationships is.
So what is it? What is a radically new relationship? What's your vision of it? What does it look like?
Yeah.
What does it sound like?
So, radically new relationships. Let me think a little bit about how to best understand it. First, like, radically new relationships the idea came about because just I'm watching couples, I'm watching media and movies and just people out in the world. And we like have a really unhealthy template for coupleship, for what a healthy relationship looks like. And so radically new relationships is really about throwing out everything you think is like normal in relationships. Like we normalize yelling, we normalize screaming, we normalize, well, everybody cheats, or boys will be boys, men will be men. We just normalize all these unhealthy things. And then it gets us into a relationship where we're not happy and we're not connected. So radically new relationships it's really about relationships it's creating relationships that feel good to come home to. It's creating a partnership with somebody who that partner is the safest person in your life, and you're the safest person in theirs. And you can't wait to come home, because coming home is your refuge. It's your safe space. It's your place where you can kind of let your hair down in a healthy way, not like I get to treat you however I want, but I get to be me, and I know that you and I, we have each other's backs. And I can have any conversation I want with you, and I know that we're going to be okay. It just feels like, I don't know, they feel like a warm blanket. It's like, oh, honey, I'm so glad to be home.
It sounds like heaven.
Yeah.
So how do we get there, Lisa?
Great question. So after years of working with, I don't even know how many couples, thousands of couples and individuals, I kept seeing the same harmful behaviors again and again and again and again and again. And so I started like really looking at, okay, what do I think are the core foundational ingredients to a really healthy relationship? And so what I came up with was 4 pillars. And so radically new relationships they have 4 pillars that are just intertwined and honored in the relationship. And the first one is uncompromising safety. Let me just list them, and then we can kind of talk about them. So the first one is uncompromising safety. The second one is absolute equality. The third pillar is courageous accountability. And the fourth pillar is humane kindness. And humane kindness is on a continuum from, to like an acquaintance or a stranger on the street, all the way to a lover in your home, which it goes from humane kindness to cherishing. But those are the 4 pillars. And those 4 pillars rest on a foundation of reciprocity and integrity.
Okay, so let's go through them one by one. So the first one.
Uncompromising safety.
Okay, so what do you mean by that?
So uncompromising safety is you should be the safest person in your partner's life, and your partner should be the safest person in your life. And I mean emotionally, physically, spiritually, psychologically, sexually. So you've heard that. So there obviously everybody knows that that physical safety, that's kind of a given. Everybody knows I shouldn't hit or punch or push or pull my, partner's hair ever. I mean, that's kind of a bottom line that most people know. But uncompromising safety goes so much further than that, right? It's about how you speak to me, how you treat me. It's, that saying, death.
Give an example.
Yeah. So psychological. Go ahead.
Yeah. What does it look like when it doesn't feel safe to have, to bring yourself into the relationship? And what does it look like to feel completely and totally safe?
So what feels not safe is, okay, my partner did something, I don't like it, I want to have that conversation. Oh, but God, they're going to get mad, or they're going to tell me, they're going to dismiss me, and they're going to say it's not true, or they're going to get so wounded that, that then I'm going to feel bad. And so I can't have that conversation.
The punishment. So there'll be some kind of consequence that I dread. Have to decide whether it's worth it to bring it up, because I know the consequence is going to be maybe as bad as what the initial thing was that I wanted to address.
Right. Or there's not full respect. I'm going to have a conversation and they're going to mock me, or they're going to roll their eyes at me, or they're going to be like, oh, please, you're too sensitive. Like there's that high level of respect isn't there. Or sexually, tonight I'm just not in the mood, and they're going to pout for 2 hours, and they're going to get kind of pissy with me about it. And then there's going to be a distance. So I can't really just say no with it being like, oh, that's cool, honey, maybe tomorrow night. Right. When it feels totally safe, there's nothing I'm afraid to say. I'm like, honey, I don't like when you just said that to me last night, that didn't feel good. And they're going to be like, oh, I'm really sorry about that. I didn't even notice. Thanks for telling me. Right. Or, I don't want to have sex, or like, yeah, I know you had a really tough day. That's cool. Right.
So they would be able to put themselves in your shoes and respond like they care about how you feel.
Yes.
Like it's not going to be all about them. They're not going to take it personally. They're not going to want to attack you or control you or manipulate you so they get what they want.
Right. And you're going to do the same for them.
It's reciprocal.
Right. Always reciprocal. That's the other thing I see in relationships. One person tends to be the one who's nicer, kinder, doing things, more accountable, while the other person isn't. And so it's not reciprocal. And so in this safety, uncompromising safety, both of them know, they both agree to, and they both honor, we will be safe to each other in all areas, in all ways. So when we're out with a group of friends, right? And I don't know, we're talking and they don't like the political views that I have, or they don't like, the opinion that I have about horses or whatever. They're not going to make fun of me or shut me down in front of their friends to get a laugh. I know that they always have my back. There's none of that kind of sideswiping or passive aggressive stuff. And if there is, because we're human, right? If there is, they'll like own it. That's uncompromising safety.
So being able to take responsibility for your slips.
Yes. Before that, even before that, it's knowing that I don't get to do that. It's not okay. And why that's so important is because again, like we have this idea in our world that if you piss me off, I get to go after you. If you do something that I don't like, I get to come after you. And
Yes.
with this uncompromising safety, it's I don't get to go after you, and nor do you. You do get to have a conversation with me. You do get to, hold me accountable. You do get to set limits with me, and I get to do that with you. But that's where it stops. You can be really unhappy with me, but you do not get to harm me or be abusive or aggressive or intimidating in any way, and nor do I to you. And that's really where the uncompromising safety is. It's like almost we contract that what's normal out in the world, no, this is radically new. We're not playing by those old rules. It's not okay to just snap at me because you had a bad day. I can have compassion for your bad day and clean up how you're talking to me. And I do the same.
Well, it sounds great, Lisa, but given that we all come from a culture that did not teach us that, how do we actually learn to bring that kind of mutual respect to each other when it's not part of our history or even part of our psychological makeup?
It starts with daring to be committed to creating that, right? Because so many people are like, oh, that's crazy. No, that would never work. No, I don't want that. And it really starts with, no, you know what? I want a radically new relationships because I haven't been happy in them before. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to start working on this and start figuring it out and stop normalizing all this other stuff that kind of makes me cringe, but I don't ever deal with. So it starts with first, let's both of us commit. Yeah, we know these 4 pillars. We're going to do our best to really work these and learn the skills necessary and to hold each other accountable to doing these. That's where it starts. First, you got to be on board to be like, yeah, this is what I want.
So in order to do that, you have to really recognize that the relationship as it is right now is not working for both of you. Neither one of you is really happy. Right. You may be comfortable in the way it's been going, but underneath you're really not happy, and you find yourself doing all kinds of things to deal with the unhappiness that are not constructive and are not bringing. They may bring you momentary relief, but they don't really bring you joy, and they don't bring you deep satisfaction.
Right.
And that's
or you're not in a relationship and you want to create a healthier relationship. Now you have a template. So either you're in a bad relationship now and you're like, this, I'm just not happy. I'm losing myself. I'm feeling like disconnected. I'm lonely, that. And so I need something radically new, right? And I'm daring to love myself enough to go after that. Or I'm young, I'm starting out, or I'm just divorced and I'm starting out and I'm not playing by old rules anymore. Here's what I want. Join me or don't. And if you don't join me, sorry, you're cute or you're pretty. I wish you did, but I'm going after somebody else who will join me here.
Yeah, I think that sounds a little more doable starting out than trying to change old patterns that have been established in a relationship. How would you address that?
Well, I think like we do, right? So when I'm working with couples now, I'm looking at these four pillars, and I'm really trying to figure out, okay, what pillar are they the most weak on? And that's where we're going to work. And then inch by inch, we get them, so the second pillar is courageous accountability. And that's a tough pillar, right? In many relationships.
Say more about that.
Well, courageous accountability is that you take full ownership for your behavior and the impact of your behavior on your partner. Mm-hmm. And you hold your partner to the same degree. You hold them accountable to be responsible for their behaviors with you. So if you come to me, let's say, Arlene, you and I are in a relationship and you don't like something that I'm doing, it's your responsibility to hold me accountable for that. Have the conversation with me in a clean way, like we said, grounded, powerful strength, but have the conversation with me. And it's my job to be courageously accountable. And what I mean by that is, oh my gosh, so many people have a hard time admitting and owning their behaviors, right? They get defensive, they spin it, they blame. It's one of the most courageous things that somebody can do, to actually say, you know what, you're right, I did that. I can see the impact of that on you. I'm so sorry about that. And I want you to know I'm going to work it. I could literally, I would say maybe 5 to 10% of the population is able to do that really well and cleanly. I might be a little exaggerating, but it's so hard.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to be able to own behavior that is obviously hurtful to their partner?
What I see is with men, I think that there's this behind the men's defensiveness is, I'm a good guy, I'm a good guy, I'm a good guy, right? I did that, but I was tired, or what, you're not making, why is it such a big deal? It's like it's their self-esteem, their ego a little bit. There's this piece that, and also there's this other piece that if you say you're sorry, or you acknowledge something, that you're not a man, you're not manning up, it's weak to do that. With women, I see it more around perfectionism, right? I have to do everything right. I got to look good. I got to have it. And so it's around protecting themselves around perfectionism. And that's just one thing, not, but those are like big sweeping examples that I see with men and women. But I can tell you, it is, if you don't have courageous accountability in your relationship, I believe it's a showstopper, like, because you can't grow. You can't solve things. If every time I come to you, I'm telling you about, hey, I didn't like what this happened, or hey, can you change this, or hey, blah, 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 you're going to fight me on it and you're going to get defensive, then all I know is that this is going to keep happening because you're not strong enough to hear it, right? And I can't go anywhere with it. So that's a big one. And on courageous accountability, I work with couples a lot. Like, I'm doing a lot of role plays and a lot of like stopping them and boundaries and self-esteem. But again, in this model, it's about the couple realizing, okay, yes, this is one of the pillars. So we're going to have to keep working it. And yes, our vision is that either one of us, this is reciprocity, right? It's not just the woman who's complaining and the man has to do it, or just the man who's complaining and the woman has to be accountable. We both are acknowledging, yes, I want to be able to talk to you about my upset, or a request, or give some type of critical feedback, and know that you're going to hear it. And yes, you can give it to me, and I'm going to, really be as courageous as I can to be able to hear it from you.
Sounds really good to me.
It's so freeing. I believe that this one creates the most intimacy and the most connection, more than any of the pillars, even more than humane kindness, which we haven't talked about yet, but because there's a vulnerability, oh my gosh, I love you enough and I care about you enough that, gosh, your experience matters to me. And you love me enough that I feel that my experience matters to you. Versus in so many couples, many men and women both will say, I don't feel heard. She doesn't hear me. He doesn't hear me. And that often plays out in this courageous accountability piece. It's a game changer in relationship.
I could see that, because it creates space for both people to really bring themselves in and to feel heard and cared for. And without that, there's always an underlying feeling of resentment and building of grievances. And it can go forward back to childhood, and it just gets reenacted in the current relationship. So that would be a game changer if couples could learn how to do that, and were committed to doing that.
And imagine if they just had that as their template. They're like, okay, this is where our vision is. This is what we're working towards. And we're both working towards it. This is not, it's not just one.
It's not a contest. It's not, it's not about I'm right and you're wrong, not about any of that. Right. It's both of us learning. Because I think women have as much trouble hearing about their imperfections as men do.
I agree. I agree.
Easily hurt and criticized. Um, and also, I think how to give that kind of feedback in a way that it could be heard is another part of that.
Yes.
That I teach our couples.
Yeah, there's a lot of skills involved in it, right?
Yes.
But when they get it, it's like I'll when I'm working with couples and they get it, I'm like literally like, yeah,
I know exactly what you
right?
mean.
Because you can feel the intimacy happening, even though, and the irony of courageous accountability is, even as I'm admitting that I just hurt you, you're feeling closer to me.
That's right.
How crazy is that, right? That's like beautiful, I think. When it's coming from my heart,
Absolutely. And I think if that's the message that can come through with these 4 pillars and people could actually get that message, it would be a life changer. It would be a changer for them, for their kids, for everybody in their lives.
Yeah, imagine parents modeling this to the next generation, right? And it just becomes, this is how we roll now. And we throw out gender socialization stuff, like men being tough and women being nice. Women being nice, that means that they don't hold the men accountable, right? And men being tough, that means in the way that we describe it, or how they've been taught, that means they can't say that they made a mistake. They can't say they hurt your feelings. That's crazy. It's killing us. We can't do that.
Because there's no room here to be a human being.
Right.
You know, right. It's like these little roles that we've gotten accustomed to living in. And I think we suffer tremendously.
Yes.
To get back to the pillars. So we're up to the 3rd pillar.
Absolute equality. And absolute equality, talk about going back to gender socialization and patriarchy and misogyny. I'm talking radically new. We're not going for a little bit better. All the old templates are thrown out. And absolute equality is, I don't give a damn if you are a stay-at-home dad, a stay-at-home mom. I don't care who's working, who's not working. We are equal, and we respect each other's opinions, and we listen to each other's things. And one person doesn't control the money because, well, I make the money, so it's my money. And the other person is like, well, and like on the other side of that, the person who's making the money, the other person doesn't get to spend every single dollar, and it goes right through their fingers like water, right? And so they're not respecting the couple's earnings. Or some people, some faiths believe that the men are the head of the household, and you have to be very careful about that kind of thinking, and what is it, how does that play out, and not to challenge religious beliefs, but there has to be a bottom line that we are human beings with the absolute same inherent worth. And my upset is just as important as your upset. And your money is just as important as my money. And what we agree on, that means we both are responsible for holding that agreement and following, living by it, following it.
So Lisa, are you saying that the couple has to have an explicit agreement of how they're going to be partners together?
What a great question. I would say what they need to commit to is, listen, in our relationship, it's really important that both of us feel equally worthy to the other. And if at any time, for any reason, I'm doing anything that leads you to feel like I'm treating you as less than, or I'm seeing you as less than, I want you to say that to me, because I don't ever want you to feel like I see you or treat you as less than. And if you're vice versa. So because it can show up in so many different ways. It could be like, I'm telling you like, oh, I think that climate is a really important issue. And you're like, oh, that's so crazy. Are you listening to blah, 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 blah? Whoa, wait a second. I don't like, right. So if you're talking down to me or you have the energy of contempt in our relationship, that doesn't work. And same with me. So if I'm going into toxic shame and I'm feeling worse than you, that's not okay. And if you're going one up where you're looking down your nose at me, or I'm going one up and looking down your nose at you, that doesn't work. Disdain, contempt about any issue, any conversation. No. Full respect. Like, we need to really, it's not even full respect. It's really a full honoring of our humanity. And we are absolutely equal, regardless of anything, gender, race, money, job. So it's more about, we are committing in our relationship to view each other as equals, to treat each other as equals, to ensure that we both have an equal voice.
Well, it sounds so reasonable that I don't see why everybody's not signing up. And yet, right, from what I've seen, I don't see that much of that kind of behavior in couples. So what do you think is getting in the way?
I think misogyny, gender socialization, patriarchy, right? All of the teachings that we've had for, since the beginning of time are so ingrained in our soul on some level that we have to get more conscious of those and how it's playing out, right? I think that sometimes women in particular, I don't want to lose him. I don't want to do so they'll take a one down position just to not lose him because they're afraid. I think men can more naturally do that one up move because they've been taught, again, since the beginning of time. And they have to watch that. They got to slow that down. I think there are a lot of different, and some believe, like I said, some faiths train you to that the men are the head of the household, and many women want the men to take the lead. And it's not that you can't have that set up if you believe, that the woman is in charge of the house and the kids, and she makes those decisions, and I'm going to make these decisions. If you're doing that in a way where you feel equally worthy and you're both honoring that, that's one thing. If you're doing it in a way that I got to stay in my place and I've got to know my place,
down. You're saying the feeling of being one down, having less power in the relationship.
Right.
That is toxic and does not work.
Right. It does not work. No matter how much you think it does not work. You cannot feel good in your skin when you're in a one down position in your relationship. And by the way, what I see time and time and time again, when that dynamic plays out, the person who is in the one up position does not respect the person in the one down position.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing.
They just lose respect for them. I mean, and I understand, because you've lost respect for yourself. Right, and right. So if you can't respect yourself, then they certainly won't. And so that doesn't work. Radically new. I'm not going for old.
Okay. I think we have one more pillar to talk about. What was the fourth pillar, Lisa?
Humane kindness. So humane kindness is, there is a bare minimum of kindness that you need to treat every human being with. In your relationship, that goes to cherishing. And what I see in relationships is far too often people treat others, strangers on the street, better than they treat the people in their own home.
I've seen that over and over again. It always boggles my mind.
Right. That should not happen. You're in my inner circle, right? So it's a privilege to be in my inner circle. You better treat me as though it's a privilege. I'm in your inner circle. It's a privilege for me to be in that inner circle. I need to treat you like that, because we don't have very many spots in our inner circle. And so if you're in my home, and you're in my intimate relationship, I'm going to cherish you. And that's going to show up in, with radically new relationships. Humane kindness and cherishing is interwoven in the little things. It's like, hey, baby, thanks so much for doing the kitchen. I appreciate that. It's a smile. It's like, oh man, you've had a tough day. You look tired. It's, hey, I'm happy to take the trash out. I'll take the trash out for you. Why don't you just rest? Like it's a little, and it's reciprocal. So you're both doing it. You're both thanking and you're appreciative and of course, not all the time. I'm not talking like we have to be perfect. However, in radically new relationships, it is part of your template. It becomes just the norm, and you're both feeding off of it, and you're both like very aware to just let me do those tender touches. I got to do tender sprinkles all the time that take me not even 10 seconds sometimes. A smile takes like, a half a second, but that smile is like, oh, it's good to see you. And then it's like, oh, that's sweet.
So you're really talking about how to sweeten the relationship.
Yeah.
How to bring in all those little sweet morsels so everybody feels valued.
Yeah. Again, radically new relationships feel great to come home to. If you don't have those sweet morsels, it's not going to feel great to come home.
It all sounds so reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we just have to keep being committed to that and begin to clean out all the toxic messages that we have ingested over centuries, both men and women.
It's both.
But it's both. It's absolutely
both. Gosh, the messages we've been taught as men and women, they've so hurt men and they have so hurt women. We need to just throw them the hell out and love men and love women, but like act humane. Like, let's get back on the human. And by the way, this is the same 4 pillars work in radically new cultures, in businesses, right? They're uncompromising safety in your business. You have to have courageous accountability. You got to hold your managers. So many businesses don't hold their managers accountable and they lose all these employees, right? You have to create a safe environment for everybody all the time. You have to have humane kindness. You got to treat your employees with kindness. You can't work them to the bone and pay them nothing and expect that you're going to have loyalty and a good working environment. You can't do it. And you have to hold, in a business, you have to hold your people accountable in the moment. Drives me crazy. Corporate America, like, you say something rude to me in a meeting and nobody's going to say anything. And then maybe after the meeting, my boss is going to have a conversation with you. No way. You just did this in a meeting. I am going to, with a grounded, powerful strength, I'm going to be courageous and hold you accountable right there in front of the team, cleanly, respectfully, with a grounded, powerful strength. But of course, I'm going to say that because we have to establish a whole new environment, radically new environment in our team, in our culture.
And different ground rules. We're playing by different ground rules.
Different ground rules.
It's going to take a lot of courage.
Yeah. And remember the other thing, reciprocity always goes back, and then integrity. Mm-hmm. Just because everybody else is cheating doesn't make it okay to cheat, right? What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? No. What happens in your soul plays out in your relationship, and you make sure your soul is in integrity.
And that feels good to you and to your spouse.
And passes on to the next generation and out and sprinkles out into our world. It's the ripple effect.
Well, I'm on board. Let's find out if other people are ready to jump in, because it sounds really, really good to me.
Yeah. So I invite everybody to start playing with these 4 pillars. Really slow it down. Think about it. You're going to do it imperfectly. Nobody's perfect. That's okay. It just works in a way like I want us to honor these 4 pillars. And when we're awry, we're going to come back with our humanity and humility, and we're going to own it, and we're going to try it again, and we're going to repair it. You're not going to do it perfect, but radically new, like we're like really going awry right now, and we need to create something radically new. So the gauntlet is down. I invite everybody to start playing with these 4 pillars and really start creating, showing a whole new template for the next generation that many of us have never had.
And yet I'm willing to bet that as people are listening to this, they can resonate with every one of those pillars because they're so basic to what makes one feel good about themselves and in their lives. There's nothing about the ideas, but learning how to implement that in a relationship is what's really hard.
Yeah.
And challenging.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm actually creating a course now on it. So as soon as that course is out, I will, let people know if you want to learn about some of them. But for now, like, really start playing with it. Think about it. Like, how do these 4 pillars fit in your relationship? Do you honor them? When other people in your relationship don't honor them with you, what does it feel like? Right? Do you feel good? Do you feel closer? Do you feel further away? What's happening?
Do you want to say a couple of words about this new course so people know what they can look forward to?
Oh, interesting. I wasn't ready to talk. Sure. So I'm going to do an 8-week course. And the 8-week course is, I think at first I'm going to do a beta group. So I'm just going to get 20 people to try it out. And it'll be 8 weeks. I'll drop it on one day. And then a week later, we'll do a live call. So you have the whole week to watch the videos and learn about each skill. And then we'll do a live call where you can, ask me questions and we can, do some work on it and start getting this model out there. Start getting people, here's a template for you.
Great. Well, that's very exciting. So now people know what you're up to and how they can learn how to do it and bring it into their lives.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Sounds really good.
All right. So thank you, Arlene, for talking with me on this.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing this to life. I think it's really much needed.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So I'm glad. All right, you guys, like everything, every podcast, if you like it, share it. If you have a question, drop it in the comments section. And if you want us to talk about something, give us suggestions. And for the next week, really start paying attention about these 4 pillars. Pick one that you want to incorporate in your relationship a little bit more, that you need to clean up a little bit, and focus on that. And I have lots of information on radically new relationships on my blog. So lisamerlo-booth.com, you can go there and read some of those. And here's to radically new relationships in a radically new culture. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay.
All right. Thank you again for joining us this week. And always remember, you have the power to change the world for women by changing how you walk in it. I challenge you to choose one way to stand in your grounded, powerful strength this week and be part of the ripple of change.